Call the meeting to order. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is Mr. Bolt coming to move his chair?
Right, that would move it off to,
We can move it until he comes.
that's good. That's better.
Then you gotta look at me.
Okay. Oops.
The approval of the financial report.
Yeah.
A motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Councilman Pacer, second by Councilman Panic to approve the financial report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Approval of the May 9th Town Board meeting minutes. Second.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Deason, second by Councilman Pacer to approve the minutes of the May 9th, 2022 Town Board meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Fire Department monthly report, you all have that.
Yep.
I don't know that we need any kind of a motion, it's just,
Oh, we should read it for the public.
you don't, oh, yeah. Good idea. Your Stafford Fire Department answered 23 calls for service for the month of May, including a boat fire, a tractor fire, and multiple vehicle collisions. Mercy Flight was landed multiple times in our district and neighboring districts by Stafford Fire Department in May. Engine 94 has been outfitted completely with new battery-powered extrication equipment to replace the 20-plus-year-old onboard hydraulic tools that were beginning to fail. This truck is approaching the end of its service life expectancy, and a committee has been formed to replace it within the coming 2 to 3 years. This new truck will be built as a combination pumper and tanker to achieve our goal of reducing the fleet size as discussed previously with the town board. As always, anyone with operational questions or concerns may find me at our fire hall any Monday evening at 7 p.m. You may seek an audience with me personally and should refrain from harassing the Stafford Fire Department membership outside of their duties. Regards, Matt Hendershot, Fire Chief, Stafford Fire Department, Incorporated. Any questions? Code and Zoning Officers Monthly Report. He could not be here tonight, so is there any questions? If not, is there a motion to accept it
So moved.
as presented?
Second.
Motion by Councilman Deason, second by Councilman Pacer to accept the permit log of the Code and Zoning Enforcement Officer. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Eric Weiss is not currently going to be here, or he's going to be here. And he's going to, item 6 and 7 in your agenda would be covered by Eric. He's going to discuss the current situation of Water District 12. So he had to go to another meeting tonight, so when he gets here, why, we'll put him on board. Item number 8, Fargo Road, PUD questions about the, is anyone here who, wanted to know anything about that project?
I got a call by that, on that, and I said, maybe we should have an update, on where we stand with that. Is there anything sitting there open? Is there, I know he had he had to put up a performance bond. Is that done? What's the movement on this?
Probably the same as the guy that was gonna build something up there before. The cost of everything has just gotten to the point where it probably can't, this is just me.
All right, one of the specific issues the people raised was a fence, which would have been a solid blocking, was substituted with a natural fence, and the natural fence is all dying. So they're wondering what's going to happen with that. So this will be a good one for Jerry to be at. Why don't we table this until next month and have Jerry here
Yeah.
to review. We should review that thing. It was all gangbusters for a while.
Yeah. Okay.
We hired Steve to manage it, and now it's nothing. Probably the price of lumber. Seriously.
Could be, very easily.
Very possibly. Town historian update.
I have not contacted this person yet, but I will be in the next few days.
Okay. Cable updates.
Okay, we got, Barb, do we have that letter?
It's in your, okay,
All right.
here, you need it?
Sure. One of the things I wanted to do is we got a letter about getting cable service to Bartoff Road. And I wanted to make sure to go over the letter specifically with everybody. And then I can give you an update on the grant I tried to get. I mean, let's get the bad news out first.
Yeah.
Northern Border County grants cannot have any pass-through to a private entity. So, the guy from Charter was very sensitive to that, and he wouldn't, he gave me some general prices per mile. And the last map we had, we went over, we got about 10 miles to go. There's 10 miles of road that we still have to do. I got, based on a couple of the private parties where they told me they wanted 22,000 to come 8 poles down from Morganville. We had another one and they're about the same amount. So we predicted it'll be about 500,000 to cover those last miles. So consequently, that's what I turned in the grant for, was for 500,000. And they kind of nudged me aside for the letter of intent, but I pushed back and they let me go to the submission. But when I turned to Charter, they said, without a letter from the New York Department of State, we're not going to invest any time into this. We're working with the county. So I got a hold of the guy that they listed as the Department of State guy for Northern Border Counties Board, and he said, no, we can't. He goes, and I talked to the people at the commission, and it can't pass to a private entity. And I go, but when I look at their history, it discusses broadband. He goes, yeah, that broadband is a Wi-Fi network that they did in the center of town, and the town owned it. So unless we want to get into the cable business, the northern border counties is not something we'll be able to do. That's the bad news. Here's the good news. Talked to Matt Landers, but I included him on everything I did with northern border counties, because they have a broadband program they're going to do. Well, I got a little more detail on it. Now it's still in the bid stage, so really can't talk about what the bids are, but they're high. But what they're looking at is to have, within 24 months, a majority of the county, of the leftover from the county done, and by 36 months have every building in the county will have broadband running in front of it. So not just homes, but every building. So we should be able to see pretty soon what we have going on. Now, 2 phases, one at 24 months, one at 36 months. They have what they're going to do at 24 months covered, they feel, on the grants they have now. That's not the case with the 36 month, and then that could probably be the long stretches of wire where you're going quite a ways to hit 1 or 2 customers.
Yeah.
Matt said he would appreciate town participation in that. So so I think what we need to consider to do is, for the northern border counties, we would have to have 20% of what we applied for set aside. So I applied for 500,000. We would have to have 100 and some thousand. Well, 500,000 for the whole project, of which 100,000 would come from us, 400,000 would come from them. If you really look at it, that's like 10% of their grant budget. So, but it crashed due to the ownership. And as I said earlier, if what we're getting is somewhere around 33,000 a year in franchise fees, I was predicting that it would take us 15 years. It would take us 21 years to cover the remaining 10 miles of town. So this county effort looks excellent. All right. The letters from Andrew Miller. Is Andrew Miller here?
Yes, I am.
All right. So you can see where it's going. So
Okay.
we'll see as soon as they give us some information on what the priority list is, and I do have letters out and responses from both Charter on how we get prices and where they fit in the priorities, and also from the county on how they want them submitted and how they will be interpreted in the priorities. But again, because I kept asking me, all right, well, how much of this is developed enough to be shareable? And he said the part that's developed enough to be shareable is that within 36 months we will have the county covered. And then the nuances come in from there. So I wanted to cover this with the board because I didn't want to call back with a single board member's answer. My dad and myself live on Bartow Road, and we've been refused service to reliable internet due to the town voting not to force Spectrum to run their lines to every resident in Stafford.
Can we stop there? Or do you want to comment? Go ahead. I mean, we can't force these people.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to cover it with the board. So yeah, there is. I don't recall us ever taking a vote on this.
That's what I wanted to bring up. So Spectrum at some point came through, ran their lines down the main roads.
Mhm.
Route 5, 237, very high populated roads. I would have assumed they would have had to have permits, some approval from the town board to do such a thing. And only to do that and to forget the rest of the residents of your town.
All right. One of the problems you have with the town our size is that we had one single bidder, which was Spectrum. And basically, they covered the denser areas. Now, they don't apply for a building permit for us or anything. Now, what we can do, but as I was covering, it's such a slow process because of the price per mile. Price per mile is anywhere from 50,000 to 75,000 a mile that they charge. Now, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could appraise them and tax them at $50,000 to $70,000 a mile, but we can't. So this is the best analogy I have to what we have going, what this cable coverage is like when we have rural electrification back in the 30s. None of the power companies wanted to spend the money to string power lines out to the farms, and it finally took the federal government as part of the New Deal to bring the money right down to the local level. And that's really what you're seeing here, is that the county is getting grants from the state and the federal government to do the broadband.
Right.
All right. But we have very little control over that. For years, I asked about, coming down Fling Road, because that's where I am. And, they said, well, yeah, we'll come, but you have to pay $23,000 to do it. And I can see the house, the last house that has cable, and it's still $23,000. So I go, that's all right, I'll spend my money on DirecTV. Then all of a sudden, they're popping poles out of the ground and putting new ones in. So I asked the guy, what's going on here? He goes, well, we're leasing pole space to Spectrum, and their agreements has to have a certain quality of poles, and these poles don't meet it. And that's how I found out that they're getting cable down that road. Why they did it, I still don't know. Now, we had another case, Randall Road. Randall Road, we went through the process and we told them that we would pay out of our, what's the fee called? Franchise fee, Randall Road to be done. They did Randall Road, they never charged us. So it can get a little confusing. I think a lot of times they'll look at their numbers, and if there's enough customers, they'll bring it down. But if you're an isolated home, it's probably going to be the county effort, very similar to the rural electrification, that will get broadband to your home. All right. Bartow Road has only a few houses on it. Unfortunately, we receive our electric from the Horseshoe Lake side of the road instead of 237, making Spectrum run their wires even farther. Due to this, they're wanting to charge me as an individual a service they normally provide for free, over $60,000. I find this to be ridiculous and a detriment to the town has put on its residents. Well, again, the town is not in control of Spectrum. It just as the town is not in control of National Grid. If you put a home far enough away, you are gonna pay to have the poles strung to your home. All right. As the world is progressing, Stafford is left behind due to the town failing its residents in keeping up with the times. As a result of the town's decisions, you are forcing families to pay higher amounts for phone services, TV services, subscriptions, internet services without the ability to have alternate options. As business and schools are opening up to more online interactions, Staffordites are not able to take advantage of these perks due to the town's decisions. I was there about a year ago to talk about this very thing and told there is money available to have Spectrum to run their lines, and there are heavy movements coming from the county and state to provide high-speed internet to all residents, yet nothing has happened in a year. Please advise the current status of making Spectrum run their high-speed internet lines to Stafford residents. What is to be done? Where is the Stafford County, State, and Spectrum in the process? How long is the process going to take? If an individual were to pay Spectrum, could they apply to being reimbursed from the town, etc.? And the last one, reimbursement, no, because we're now falling under the county plan. And I said the one thing that Matt Landers said for sure is that they'll have coverage to all buildings, not just homes, all buildings in Stafford within 36 months.
Right.
So that's the best information I can provide at this point. Okay. I'm trying to think if there was anything else from Matt's conversation I can think of. We're going to have to give that some thought between the 24 and 36 months. What do we want to put up out of our reserves to do this? Now, one of the things I did ask for is if we have an individual asking for service, that I be given, how do you want me to bring that forward and apply for that? And the person who actually handles that has been on his honeymoon and is supposed to write that up and send that to me out of charge. So that's all I got.
Okay, thank you.
But I think that's pretty darn good news.
Yeah. Well, I haven't totally left us out.
Well, again, we whine about the county, but especially about sales tax, and that's what I told Matt, is you're just trying to make us feel bad about all the bad things we say about you guys about sales tax. So, no, I mean, we're talking for the county probably $5, $6, $7 million being spent to lay broadband cable, and I cannot believe it costs $75,000 to run a mile. But they claim pole rent, pole replacements, all of
Cable
that.
costs, I'm sure. Okay. Eric, you're up.
They'll give me my numbers per mile.
He'll tell you everything you want to know about Water District 12 and maybe some other potential water districts also.
First, I apologize for the image quality. We've had a little network issue with the office, and I wasn't able to get stuff printed there, so this is our home copier.
Thank you.
I apologize. So, we opened bids for Stafford 12 a few weeks ago. We anticipated they'd be over budget, and they were. So let me kind of explain, I guess, some of the background of where the original budget came from, where we stand right now. So the engineering report for the project was finalized in April 2020. The unit price that was used at that time was $38 per linear foot for ductile iron pipe. That was based upon a little bit of inflation compared to a project that we bid in Bethany and also one we bid in Stafford a few years ago. where it was $32 a linear foot for ductile iron pipe. So fast forward to today, the bid prices that we received for ductile averaged about $93 per linear foot, just for the pipe. Hydrants have gone up, valves have gone up, curb boxes have gone up, everything else has gone up as well. So,
You said it used to cost $32?
yes,
Now it's 90?
it's gone up threefold. And this is the same for almost everything we're seeing nowadays. I just came from Bethany, because they've been kind of putting a project on hold until they saw your bid results, and they're in panic mode as well. So we're trying to figure out, how to cater this. So we also, because we anticipated ductile would be out of whack, we did a alternate bid or a separate base bid for PVC pipe, because that has been historically a little bit less. Historically, PVC we've seen in the $25, $28 range. That came in at about $60 per linear foot for PVC pipe. So obviously a few things driving that. Inflation, we've all seen it. The other big factor is contractors need to protect themselves. When they get a price for materials, for bids, it's good for one day. So they need to somehow put a number on paper that they're going to commit to per linear foot to install 9 to 12 months from now. So they all had their numbers, and I don't blame them one bit to kind of protect themselves, because they're not guaranteed. They used to be guaranteed numbers from pipe suppliers. They're not guaranteed numbers from pipe suppliers anymore. They have one day to place their order, which is never going to happen because you're never going to get agreements in place, for the project to get the pipe ordered.
Where's the pipe being made?
A lot of it's in America, but some's in Canada. A lot of the pipe and materials we have, there's American-made criteria that it has to come with. So, this isn't typically, it's not foreign-made materials. So we're stuck with a project that, based on a unit price standpoint, from pipe alone has gone up 3 times. So where does that leave us? Obviously, it leaves us over budget. We formed this project at a unit cost of $885 per year. That included debt, and that included O&M expenses. So both components. O&M has really not increased substantially since the district was formed. However, as I stated, materials have gone up substantially. So what you see in front of you is a few scenarios, taking into account different, capturing different values. So there's, you'll see an acronym here, ARPA. So that's the American Recovery money that New York State sent out to essentially, or the Fed sent out to every municipality. What rural development has been doing lately for any project that comes in over budget, typically their first question they ask is, can the town contribute all or a portion of their ARPA money towards the project? So something the town board will need to consider is that request from them. Something else we need to consider, and we're trying to juggle, is obviously 885 is no longer relevant per year. So we have to increase the district cost. By what amount is really the tough part right now. Again, I don't have a crystal ball as to where the numbers are going to land after the district is reformed, or if it gets reformed. So we're kind of still making some assumptions.
You said if we go with PVC pipe, then we have to do the O&M, right?
Yeah, I'll get there in a second.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll definitely get there in a second.
Okay.
So on the district itself, so again, 885, anything over that, we essentially have to go back to the public, reform the district. It could get turned down, it could get voted in. So there's a threshold though that we're trying to be very careful about. So the New York State Comptroller sets a limit every year based on what they feel the average single-family homeowner can afford. And that number this year is $989. So we're trying to come up with a project that's $988 or less. Reason being, if we go over the $989, we have to submit an application to the comptroller, which we've done in the past. But Town of Bethany did one last year. They submitted it in March. They didn't hear back until December on the approval process. So it's a much longer approval process to get this going. If we keep it under $989, still probably a 4-month process, but we eliminate that 9 months afterwards for their formal blessing. So we're either 4 months out or a little over a year out before we can pull the trigger on the project. So we've come up with some scenarios of utilizing full or partial ARPA money. We've come up with a scenario where, as the supervisor kind of indicated, do we go with PVC or do we go with ductile? With PVC, the Monroe County Water Authority allows it. However, they will not essentially accept long-term O&M responsibility. Now, they will come out and fix a break, replace pipe, but those costs need to be turned back to the district for reimbursement. If it's a strict ductile iron project, something breaks 10 years from now, they come out and fix it, the district will not see a bill. But I think what we gotta consider right now though is $93 a foot compared to $60 a foot. And, is there consideration for switching gears from ductile to PVC? A lot of municipalities have done it. Town of Virgin, they've essentially gone that route. All PVC, Byron's been doing the same thing. We just had the conversation in Bethany. I think they're gonna switch gears and go all PVC, because they have a project that's used to be $17 million. We now estimate it at $22 million. So, and that's with PVC. So they're also shifting gears. So again, it's something we have to consider. How they typically do it is you get a year warranty to begin with the contractor. So once the pipe's installed in service, you get a year warranty with the contractor. So any repairs are really covered by the contractor that installs it. After that period, what most towns are doing is they assess a dollar figure to everybody that's connected to public water. And most of them are in the $20 to $30 a year range. So it's $20 or $30 a year that gets put on people's tax bills, gets put into an account for the town to gather up enough funds for that rainy day when something does happen.
I got a question real quick. Did you say anything about the American Rescue Plan, how much can go to it, or if any can go to it? And does the Monroe County Water Authority, will they put any money towards it, because we were kind of forced to go with them? And what about Genesee County? Can they provide any money to help pay for any of this?
So ARPA fund will be a discussion at the town board level,
Right.
whether or not they want to contribute all or some of the ARPA funding.
Right.
As far as, I forget the exact dollar figure you guys got. Did you have that, Rich?
119, some change,
What was it?
like 119,000.
Each year, right?
Yep.
So essentially $240,000.
Yeah, 238.
That
Yeah.
our town has to,
Doesn't have to. So
Okay,
it's
doesn't
really,
have
it
to,
was
okay.
given to every town.
right,
It's really
Okay.
up to the town's discretion what they want to use those funds for.
okay,
It's got to be, essentially has to be acted upon by the town board, approved. A lot of towns use it differently, whether or not it's town hall projects. Some have used it for water main projects like this, but it's a town board discussion. As far as Monroe County Water Authority, no, they will not. They will not contribute to any project like this. This is essentially, their viewpoint is, and I understand it's a business for them. Once it's installed, they will take over operation and maintenance. As far as the county, again, would not be too optimistic on that one.
But you did say, you said that they take over the operation and maintenance of it, but technically, if we go with PVC, they won't maintain it, right?
They will still come out and fix it, but the bill will get sent to the town.
We get the bill.
Yeah, so technically, they're not maintaining it.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah,
So-
okay,
Yeah, we're not gonna get money from Genesee County. Again, they're not in the business to, put in the infrastructure. We were getting some money contributed from them for some upsizing of pipe. So in the bids, we did, and then actually in the McElwain report, I remember, but the main thoroughfare, his vision is a kind of a mainline artery for water going north to south, or south to north. So we did primarily the project 8-inch. We did alternate bid a section of the pipe. It was 12-inch, and the county was essentially going to pay for that upsizing. So
That was
really
included in the county.
that was in, yeah,
Down the
that was
road.
all including in the accounting.
So question, you're talking about Bethany now. Is the Sweetland Road and Fargo Road included in the
Yes.
Bethany project?
Yep.
Okay, now we got one more road that's kind of been left out, way out. That's the Wescott Road. You got the Transit Road here, and Roanoke here, and this short stretch. What can we do about that?
I'd have to go back and look at it.
All
Numbers.
by itself, it
I
won't,
know, no.
if it was included,
We included Sweetland in this one, in the Bethany project, because hydraulically we needed it, but Westcott, we don't.
and that Sweetland will come up all the way to the
That'll connect both,
Clipnock
both
Road,
ends,
right?
yep. So right now, again, I guess first question, it kind of pins back to the ARPA. Some other information. So even if so let's say we all agree we're gonna use some ARPA funds, we reform the district at 988. Question still comes in mind, what's gonna happen 4 months from now with the pipe price? So we've had conversations with the contractor. Obviously, they're not willing to hold their pipe price like they used to back in the day. That would not be an issue for any of these contractors, but none of them are willing to do that. So essentially, we've had a conversation with them. Right now, we're not gonna essentially reject any bids for the moment. We kind of prefer to leave them open. We did, in these budget items, we did include, what is the amount, Rich? $176,000 that we've kind of added in there to account for pipe inflation. Assuming 4 months from now, we could award the contract. Hopefully that's enough. Again, not a guarantee, I don't have a crystal ball as to where pipe's gonna land. But assuming that's enough and we get through the process of reforming the district, we would essentially work with that contractor, Surgery Pipeline, award the project, negotiate what the new material price is, and likely deal with the fuel escalation. Hopefully by then, we're still in budget, and he still wants to do the job. The other thing we've talked to him about, because in these scenarios, we essentially take our contingency down to single-digit numbers. Typically, we carry 10% contingency in projects. But in order to kind of keep us under that $989 level, we've kind of had to look at our not the material escalator that we've had, but the overall contingency. So we've dropped that to between 1% and 3%, depending on the option on this page you look at. The way we could do that and kind of feel comfortable is once a project is awarded, negotiate essentially a lump sum price for the contractor. So right now it's a unit price contract. So, we gotta go out and measure and, the number of linear foot they put in each day, all the hydrants. On projects with tight budgets, and we did this in the past with Town of Batavia, with their Creek and East district, I think about 6 years ago. Actually the same contractor, it was a very tight budget, and we negotiated essentially just switched to a lump sum. So he knew exactly what he was getting paid. Wasn't a mystery at the end of the project, fighting over quantities. So he knew the dollar figure, and that allows us to be comfortable that for lump sum, I'm sorry if there's anything else you encounter underground, it's on you. If they encounter more rock, it's on them. So that's kind of some of the discussion we've had with the contractor. So, I guess before I go any further, any questions that you have right now?
Surprise, I heard about this, and we've been told by our bookkeepers that our ARPA money is unassigned, but we did assign it. We assigned it to replace the lost revenues from the courts. Because the courts have been, and our budget is set on a revenue level that says that ARPA money is going to take the place of what happened with the courts. Now the courts, it's a triple whammy. Number one, they're not writing as many tickets on the throughway. And they may have shifted, and we've seen them do it before. Leroy was doing very well, all of a sudden it became a desert for them. Now they're doing well again. So if they shift around on the throughway, it can have an effect on our budget. Number two, the, the bail reform, where we would get a percentage there, and that's been cut out. Then the other one is what we can do to, that's right. They used to suspend their licenses if they didn't pay their fines. Well, now, you can't suspend their licenses if they don't pay their fines. So all of a sudden, we're seeing well in excess of what the ARPA money is gone. So then when we looked at what should this be spent on, well, duh, I mean, we have a budget, our revenue is gone, this is where we're gonna put it. So that's the story on our ARPA money. And like I said, I'm surprised that the answer came back from Heidi or Marcy that we haven't assigned it yet.
So did you assign just the first years or both years of the ARPA?
Both years.
Okay.
I mean,
They've only received one.
Yes.
Half of it.
Yep.
yeah. So then what you run into is, do we have, I'm just conjecturing here, and we've had a very similar discussion on cable. It's the same thing. You have a pretty good part of the, you have a fair percentage of the town that doesn't have water, probably never will get water. So should they pay more in taxes, so we use our ARPA funds, which is supposed to displace a revenue source?
Well, there's a question there that ARPA fund, can we restrict it to just part of the town? It should be spread out
Yes.
among everybody
And
instead of just that.
that was the whole discussion, rather than doing a special project with it that only benefits a small percentage of the town, that we do something that benefits everybody. And the discussion was backfill the court. Because now, the court used to be a profit center for us, basically. It's bad,
So we take the 238 out of there, that 987 is no longer
It
relevant.
doesn't look too promising right now. Yeah, well, we'd have to play with some other numbers and.
Well, now that there's a new reality when it comes to prices, is the Department of Agriculture going to relook at how much of these things they fund?
No, I don't think they're gonna limit projects. They essentially, any new project nowadays, they're essentially highly encouraging a 20% contingency.
No,
So-
that's not the question I'm asking. Let's say we drop this and reform the district and reapply.
No, you wouldn't be reforming, so, or you wouldn't be reapplying. So they're not gonna pull away what they have. So the process with rural development is you reform the district, you go back through, do a new bond resolution. So your original funding package remains in place, then you apply for them for supplementary funding.
All right.
So I haven't seen it turned down yet. I know Bergen had to do the same thing last year with their project. So what they will do is they'll look at, they typically use the model that they have right now, so whatever grant percentage we obtained originally, they'll do the same model, so they give us a little more grant funding, but then whatever the remaining is will be loan money. Now, the only concern with the loan money right now is we originally locked in, yes, I need to buy phones, at,
1.37.
1.375%. Current rate is 2.125%. So the additional loan money you get locks in a little higher rate. So these options here reflect that. You'll kind of see essentially two different debt service amounts, and that's really the reason behind it. It's based on two different loan packages from RD. So yeah, they wouldn't pull their original. It's really just supplementing what you have, but the town board would have to go through, again, reforming the district and redoing the bond resolution.
Typically, we have, at the end of the day, there's grant money left on the table.
Oh my gosh. As I was driving up here, I'm thinking back, I mean,
Thousands, hundreds of thousands.
every project we have $100,000 we're trying to, we paved a road and, it's just
But I mean,
unprecedented times.
if we could just use that to reduce the unit cost,
Yeah,
that would, I don't know, it would make sense what you're
I know,
doing with the
but,
government.
you're normally,
Nothing makes
yeah,
sense.
normally grant money at the end you give back, but in this case, we're not projecting any to give back, so.
Sir?
Yes?
You said the price of material has basically tripled, but what amount of the budget is material?
So the overall, I honestly don't have a good breakdown. Because the bidders don't bid it like that. They bid it based on, their total, total cost, labor, materials, equipment. So I really don't have a number that I want to give you offhand. And we could have a conversation with the contractor, but it's one I don't want to put a number out there and have it wrong, so. So ARPA fund seems like it's off the table, which is, like I said, that's fine if that's the case, so at least we have an answer
Yeah.
on that. We'll essentially get together with Municipal Solutions, kind of have a discussion, but assuming we can figure out a scenario that gets us under 989, does it seem like something the town board would want to move forward with? Reforming the district? And really, it'd be a board action at that point. Typically we have done petitions in the past, but typically when we get to a point where we're reforming because of some cost escalation and overages, it's typically, public hearing, town board, acts on behalf of the district, subject to progressive referendum. But there's timing, there's all the timing in place for that with advertisements and estoppel
In
periods.
this specific water district, you're talking about $104 more
Yep,
to provide water.
yep.
On top of all.
But yeah, if that's where they're at now, and if we can get it under the 990.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know.
I think it's a, is it a, sure, I just want to be clear, this is not a surefire thing either. So, we can earn 989, we assume 989, then we may come back in 4 months and talk with the contractor, and he may tell us pipe has gone up 3 times more. The only other option is pick a dollar figure over 989, but now we're going to the comptroller, and then you're in the same boat where now you're, instead of waiting 4 months, like I said, you're probably a year before you can get to the point where you're bidding the project again. And again, it's a gamble of where the materials are. I just don't know.
There'd be no point in reducing the size of the district. would there?
If you reduce it, you're substantially changing the project scope. Now
Yeah, right.
but now you are essentially forfeiting your rural development funding package.
Yeah.
So once you do that, once you modify the district like that, the boundary, now,
But you can apply again for it.
you can, yes, but reality, the costs are still gonna be
The
very
end
similar.
result probably be the same.
Well, unless you where you provide service to a group of homes and then you gotta do a long run to provide service to a scattered group of homes. I mean, that's the trouble we're having on Westcott, is
Yep.
you just have, the density just isn't there.
Things have changed. If the situation existed now that existed then, we could have included that, either the Roanoke or the Transit. But it wouldn't work then, but, well, it doesn't matter, I mean, it's, and you have to, is there a minimum, what if you ran, like on the West Coast, what if you ran 6-inch pipe and no fire hydrants?
Water authority will not allow
Not allowed. Okay. I mean, a
it.
fire
And
hydrant,
typically codes will not allow it, so.
fire hydrant is fine, but it's no good until the fire truck gets
I
there.
know. Some entities will allow it, Monroe County Water Authority will not.
Okay.
And I understand, they need some stuff I don't understand, but that they do, but some stuff I do, it's, they need to stick with certain policies, so they don't have an exception over here and tell somebody no over on the other side, so they're pretty, once they have an issue response, it's pretty common. I think you saw that, Steve, in doing your water service to the farm, so. Yeah, small diameter mains just isn't feasible. Do you think it's something we want to approach rural development for? Because I think what they want to get, we need to get back to them by,
Sooner the better, because you're trying to lock in potentially a lower loan rate, or, because that loan rate adjustments happen.
end of July, I believe, right? Isn't it
Something
going back
to
up
that effect, yeah.
again, so.
So let's go over what we got going on. To make this work, we would have to change what we're gonna use the, what's the, ARPA?
You don't have to.
No, I know.
Yep.
But to make this work, we would have to take the
It would-
ARPA funds,
At least half would make it,
draw that out of the budget, and assign that to this water project. So basically, you're asking the rest of the town to fund this water project. And then on top of that, anybody who does have water, we're gonna charge them a fee to cover this one project's
no,
plastic pipe.
no.
Or just,
Just this project will have that fee.
all right,
Yep. Everybody else has ductile pipe. They will not have a fee to cover, they would have to cover that. So districts operate on their own. They're essentially a,
that's what I thought,
Yep.
that's why I asked.
yep. No, we would not convey that to everybody else.
All right.
All right, so then we can proceed to change things here, so we can fit it in under $1,000.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, we have an environment where we're not getting money from the court, we're not getting money from sales tax. We held the line this year.
We should be getting a little bit more in sales tax due to the inflation of the cost of everything.
I thought we're set at a top dollar amount. That was the whole thing to build the jail, was the agreement has us at where we get what we're gonna get. We aren't gonna get any more. So,
That's fixed for 30-some years.
so I mean, it's a great little bureaucratic move. Don't come see us, give up some of the money we already gave you. Well, the money we gave you, we used to cover the changes you made to the law, which now limit our income. So now we're gonna have to pull it out of the residents. And if you think they're mad about getting their house reassessed, wait till we tax them on it. So, but we've got to get a clear picture of what's been assigned and what's not. We got to get a clear answer from our bookkeepers. Was it just last year's that was assigned? or, and we still haven't assigned this one, what are they talking about?
I think we assigned the whole thing.
I recall assigning the whole thing.
We only got half. So
Yeah,
far.
and then we get the other
So
half.
far. I don't know when the other half is
The other
due.
check's supposed to be coming soon, I believe, next few months.
Seeing what they did, they made the move, well, if you haven't assigned it yet, we'll take it. Well, no, we did assign it.
Yeah, we'll have to find out.
Yep.
I'm thinking we don't have a lot left in reserve, just because we've got a lot of money sunk into this water project. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Are you talking about our actual reserves?
Yeah.
Well, we've got $200,000 in this water project now.
Yeah, we'll get it back someday.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Doesn't do us any good right now.
Okay,
What do you need from us?
No, I guess finalize the discussion on the ARPA. We can get back to RD, because like I said, they're the ones that asked the question. And like I said, if you've already assigned it, I guess let's confirm that. If you haven't, then I guess have a discussion if, you know,
no, it's still.
what you're gonna do with the rest.
It's still in the bag.
So, I guess that's question one. Once we kind of know that answer, we can kind of cater, I guess, what this estimate is. But from what it sounds like, trying to target the $989 figure seems to make the most sense. Kind of based on the responses I've gotten versus a higher amount. So, like I said, I just want to let you guys know, this is not a guarantee this is going to move forward still. Because the market is just so screwy.
I mean, ductile iron pipe is totally out of the question.
It's, yeah. It's $30 a foot higher, just for the pipe.
And the time frame is,
Year out for ductile.
Of course, do we have a commitment from the county for the 12-inch run?
Yeah, we didn't have a formal agreement, but we were waiting on the bid results to lock in what the number
I
was.
mean, that's down the road for the county. But
Yeah,
if we're gonna put it in the ground, now's the time to do it.
Yep. yep. Yeah, if they don't want to contribute it, then, you know, we just stick with 8 inch.
All right, now,
Okay, well, let me know on the ARPA. We're gonna get with Municipal Solutions, have some more conversations, probably submit something a little more formal to RD as to kind of what the intent is, to ask for some municipal loan and grant funds from RD, so it's in their queue. But the sooner we can find out on the ARPA, the better, I would say. I think it's end of June they needed, right? End of June is the interest rate, so I would say, if we could find out something next week, would be ideal. That way they have time, the state office has to review the application, then the additional money would actually come from the feds,
so now
in Washington.
You will be doing this work?
We'll work with Municipal Solutions to help figure,
Okay,
yep,
because if we're supposed to be doing something.
I'll let you know.
Yeah.
I'll let you know.
So then, again, if we come back with, well, we've already assigned it,
Then that's what I tell RD, and we try to figure out how to get this. We massage the numbers more, and we probably go in with a little lower contingency.
alright,
It's kind of where my head's at, because, I don't know, to me, I'd rather take the risk at the 989, hoping we get a project in budget in 4 months, than even if we shot at 1100, now you're waiting over a year before you can do anything, so, I don't know, just.
So my opinion to the board is, whether it's been assigned or not, you know, I'm not of the opinion that it should be in any way assigned to this project, because it's not benefiting the whole town as a whole.
Understood.
Mhm.
That's just my opinion.
No, it's true. It doesn't.
No, definitely understand.
If we can make it work without it,
But,
I'm in favor of proceeding.
Yeah.
I don't have the unit price. What's the highest unit price that you are aware of in the town right now?
1200 rings a bell,
Is that right?
yeah.
What water district was that? I should probably know this too.
I know 1,200 rings a bell.
But I mean,
Boy, I'm gonna,
somebody's living with that figure, I mean, we're down to 900 cents.
oh, I know.
See?
Yeah, those were comptroller approvals. That was, you used to have a district map in here, didn't you? Where'd that go? I used to have one. Must be right up there.
Yeah.
Well, anyway.
So, yeah, I'm pretty sure there was one we tore at 1,200.
Yeah, there was
It's underneath
one.
there.
I remember that.
And that was comptroller approval process.
I think it was
Sounds right.
transit.
Okay,
Okay,
I
we'll
guess,
see if we can find more money.
all right.
So, any other questions for me?
Thanks for all you do.
Thank you.
It's a screwy time. Good luck with your town budget this year. You know, when I talked to the contractor, he's like, he thinks diesel fuel is gonna be at $10 a gallon by the end of the summer. That's what he's projecting, and that's what they're kind of carrying in their bid prices, because they're just, he can't take a risk.
Right.
So, all right, okay. Good night.
Thank you, Larry. Thanks. So items 6 and 7 on the agenda have been dealt with. 7, we can't do anything. Cable updates, we've done, Ron's done that. Number 11. Resolution number 28. There it is. Resolution number 28, local law number 2, the Town of Stafford zoning amendment from ag residential to commercial. Whereas the town board of the Town of Stafford, New York desires to consider adopting legislation to amend its zoning law to rezone the parcel of land with tax map number 8.1-78.2 from agricultural residential to commercial, also known as Town of Stafford Local Law Number 2 of 2022. Now therefore be it resolved by the Town Board of the Town of Stafford, New York, that proposed Local Law Number 2 of 2022 entitled Town of Stafford Zoning Amendment of 2022, which proposed local law is now in its final form, as appears by a copy thereof attached, be and the same hereby is introduced for adoption, and be it further resolved that said proposed local law be laid upon the desk of the members of this town board on this date and remain there. A copy thereof be kept on file in the office of town clerk until July 11th, 2022, and that a public hearing be held before this town board on the 11th day of July, 2022 at 7:15 p.m. at the Stafford Town Hall, 8903 Route 237, Stafford, New York, on the advisability of enacting said proposed local law, and be it further resolved that a copy of said proposed local law be mailed to each member of the town board not in attendance at this meeting in a postpaid, properly addressed and securely closed envelope in a post box within the town of Stafford, New York, not less than 10 calendar days exclusive of Sunday prior to the date of said public hearing, and be it further resolved that the town clerk shall cause notice of said public hearing to be published once in the Daily News, no more than 10, but at least 5 days prior to the date of said public hearing, which notice shall contain the time and place of said public hearing, the title and purpose thereof, as well as a statement that a copy of said proposed local law is on file in the town clerk's office, dated June 13th, 2022. Any questions? You have a copy, do you all have a copy of that?
This was the one we did back, what, in 2017? Was it?
Yeah, we thought we did.
No,
No?
219 and 221. It had the wrong tax rate numbers, so here's the pictures if you want to see.
I'm talking about the original application for change of zoning. And then we had, I thought we already had a public hearing once on this, and
I don't know. We haven't
It
found
was
it.
for,
and everything seemed to have gotten lost after that.
it was for the wrong, in 19 and 21 it was for the wrong tax map numbers. So these are the correct tax map numbers.
So we blew one, tried to fix it, blew it again, and now this
This
is
is
finally the right one?
Three
With the
strikes and
county.
you're out, you know?
All right.
With the county planning, this was the tax map number they gave me. If you can see from that map.
Because normally that's where the errors are uncovered, is when we send it to county.
Yeah, well,
And I think it
And I don't
was,
think we did.
we wanted,
previous
we wanted
ones.
a new tax map, but we can't give you a new tax map because you haven't done this.
Yeah. All right, so we're simply gonna have a
Public hearing.
public hearing and just do it over again, and not lose it.
What property is that?
It's, let's see, it's across the fence row from the property that the Stafford Fire Department owns.
Churchill's used to be.
Yeah, it was Cornwell's Churchill way back. Originally, the Masonic fraternity from Leroy was going to have their Masonic temple there, and they didn't do that, so,
It was north of 5.
yes, no, we had changed the zoning on there to accommodate Masons to do what they wanted to do, but they don't, so we're gonna blend it in with the rest of the property around it. We need a motion to do this. Any other questions, by the way? Okay, motion to,
So move.
Jim was real quiet, but I got his name down.
Oh, who the heck wants to tie your name to any of this?
Did you want to change that to a second?
Has anybody got a set? I mean, in our comprehensive plan, that's an area that we, as I said, would be eventually commercial. So it's not, we're not violating our comprehensive plan. We already did this once.
To change it to where it is now?
Yeah. All we're doing is cleaning up errors.
Yeah.
I motion.
Ron second.
Oh, I thought I made the motion. You made the motion? Oh, I didn't hear you.
He was really quiet, but I wrote his name down
All
anyway.
right, yeah, I second.
Okay. Okay, roll call.
Councilman Mullen,
Yes.
Councilman Panic,
Yes?
Councilman Deason,
Yes.
Councilman Pacer,
Yes.
Supervisor Clement.
Yes. Passed, 5-0. Be advised, there will be a public hearing on the 11th day of July at 7:15. This subject.
We'll get you a cupcake.
Oh, okay. I'll be here.
Solar law update. I don't know that there's anything to update.
Weren't we looking at, getting a attorney for our end of it? If it goes to litigation? You got a quote for us, didn't you?
We got a quote. I believe it's been emailed to everybody.
You did?
Yep. They could send back our package here.
Yeah, there it is, right
A legal firm out of Boston that specializes in renewable energy.
Alright. What's their minimum what are they looking for a retainer?
I don't know that there was a retainer,
I don't believe there was a retainer.
but it was so much, depending on what they were doing.
Yeah, well, depending what staff they had assigned to it. It looks like here, we're willing to offer such services with a not to exceed budget of $9,500. So that's just to look at things. So now, I think we need to decide, should we at least give Bob the ability to retain these guys if we had the litigation.
I don't know exactly how this works. I mean, I can call them and tell them, yeah, you're on board, but then when does their clock start ticking?
I think right then.
Yeah, right. That's second you
So
said that.
what we're saying is, as we work through this, why don't we make a motion to authorize you that if we do have to do this, you can start the clock ticking.
Okay.
And, don't forget, we're always spending an awful lot of money on trying to contain a campground,
Yeah.
so
And this will
it's no
apply,
small thing.
and this will apply specifically to one piece of property. Am I
Yes.
correct on that?
All right, so let's, I'll go with a motion that we authorize Bob, if the need is required, to enter into agreement of a not to exceed budget of $9,500 with, hang on. Somewhere I saw his, Eric J. Crothole. So it looks like the Richard May Law Firm, 176 Federal Street, Boston, Massachusetts.
Second.
Okay, would you read the motion?
Motion to authorize Bob Clement, if the need requires, to enter into an agreement not to exceed $9,500 with Eric Crothwell. I didn't write down, I will write down the full law firm. Is that-
Yes.
That's correct.
Well, you mean, when you say if the need arises, or the need has arisen, right? I mean, we're gonna do this, I assume.
No, I thought we're coming out of and there's the whole discussion about the meeting we had,
Yeah.
which we probably should have now. Coming out of that, we were looking at, are there ways beyond litigation that we can settle this up? Our goal is to protect the citizens that surround it. If we can, and the law is pretty darn open-ended as far as if you can come to an agreement with those landowners, we're out of it. So, and all this is that, well, if that doesn't work and we still want to protect those landowners, then we enter into litigation.
And then, there are not that many, really.
All right.
Would I be able to just make a comment?
Sure.
Sure.
So obviously, you had mentioned the conversation we had. I've said before, litigation is the last case scenario. Obviously, neither party wants to waste money on attorneys arguing back and forth about how to make this project feasible and what works best for everyone. The neighbors that we have, the comments that have come up before were, we don't want the 5 points to happen again, and we don't want anyone to get blocked in by solar. No one is getting blocked in, so no one is actually within this property boundary and is going to be surrounded by solar. And we've already addressed the 5 points issue with setbacks. The minimum setback is 200 feet with screening buffer.
And the only area in which litigation would ever come into play is currently for the 2,500 foot piece of the law. We've already discussed scenarios in which we're happy to figure out ways to do the escrow account. Last we talked on that call about 2 weeks ago, Mr. Panic and Supervisor Clement had mentioned that you guys were gonna reach out to a couple engineering firms for quotes. And we would start with, if they have a reasonable quote, we'll put that into an escrow account. If it has to go up, we can look at what that might be. But the only piece of the law that we're talking about litigation here for is the 2,500 foot real property piece. And not a single neighbor who is referenced near this project has come forth to the town that I'm aware of. They've been at public hearings, I've actually talked to them, and has expressed a discontent with where the project's going. So I'm a little bit confused as to why the focus right now is on litigation when the board hasn't even addressed the application in front of them. After the zoning variances were granted, typically, the board is required to address the application and provide some type of actual report as to whether or not it is a full, complete application. And we haven't even gotten to that point. So I'm a little concerned that we're already talking about litigation when we haven't done even the basic steps of saying, hey, you have, 9 out of 10 pieces ready to go. These are the 1 or 2 that make this not a full application for us to even address. There hasn't been a formal request for additional information. I have no desire to waste the town's money, taxpayer money, in litigation. It is a huge waste of time and energy.
Right.
What I would like to do is find solutions to that 2,500 piece, have it removed, and then tell us what would be a suitable resolution to that, whether it's doubling the screening, tying our decommissioning to the screening maintenance, which typically is not done. But for whatever reason, a tree dies and we don't address it in a quick enough time frame, you can enact the decommissioning bond. No other solar project does that. So there's other areas where you could add teeth to what your oversight is, so that if anything like what happens at 5 Points where trees are dying and we're not responsive, you have tangible, aggressive teeth to hold our feet to the fire. And we were willing to discuss all those elements. I'm just concerned that instead of the initial steps of looking at the environmental viability through seeker and determining whether or not the application is complete, the board's already jumping to an outside firm that's not even New York based.
The board is making sure that the research that was done on this law firm that we capture. Because we did look into our attorneys has told us in the past that he didn't want to do litigation. Don took on the job of researching all the various law firms and what would be a good match to the town. He found it. Now we've captured that in this resolution that if things do get to that, this is the firm we'll use. And that's all we really have right now is we're capturing Don's work in a resolution and it's there. I would much rather do what we discussed where we were supposed to, did we send our letters off to our engineering firm as we talked at that meeting?
No, we haven't got it, no.
Well, I think we got to do that because we did promise to do that before this meeting.
Now, do we want to totally eliminate the 2,500 foot, or do we just want to reduce it? How do we want to do that?
I would, the only thing we were supposed to handle coming out of that meeting, if I recall it properly, is that their big concern is that we set the amount too high.
Yeah.
Our counter argument was, well, our PUD requirements aren't that far off, and you're putting up known buildings with known effects that when we pulled this together, we didn't know what type of studies we'd have to do. So our part of it was, we were gonna send a letter to Eric Mountain and to,
Steve Mountain, yeah.
Yeah.
not Steve Mountain, and, well, Eric comes from the same firm, the other one we were gonna contact.
Yeah,
So,
Mark Patterson.
all right,
All
from
right.
their end, since they did mention litigation in that meeting, which was the first mention of it.
I've actually mentioned it in 2 emails prior.
All right, I don't recall, were they to Jerry or were they?
They were to Mr. Clement, Supervisor Clement.
All right, so now what they were supposed to come back with is, all right, these are in, we talked to our current run-of-the-mill business attorney that we didn't have a waiver law, where we could just waive the whole thing. So now we would have to do, we would have to entertain variances. And they were supposed to come back with, you're supposed to come back with, well, these are our ideas for variances.
So we were told we couldn't do variances by our in-house legal counsel,
Right?
Harris
No.
Beach as well. They expressed concerns on that call as to its viability for, and I understand you keep saying it's open-ended, it's very, has a lot of openness to it. And what we've said from the very beginning is there's no precedent for any type of agreement like this established in New York State. We tracked where the law came from. It came, and we can identify exactly where it came from in North Carolina. And there is no way in which we can reasonably, with our financiers and our insurers, come up with some type of agreement that would meet these requirements. For even the 4 houses that are across the street, because it is subject to so much speculation. And no insurance firm is going to give us that underwriter, and none of our financiers are going to want to take that on as part of the actual cost to build these projects. So I pushed them very hard. I said, can we do the 4 houses across the street? And they unequivocally said, no, we cannot. This is such an open-ended law that there is no teeth to it unless we limited it to, say, $5,000 or a specific dollar amount where this person can only enact it within the first year or 2, and it has to be a maximum of $5,000. Outside of that, it just turns into a huge legal nightmare where we have to draw up a massive contract, has to go back and forth through attorneys, and just the sheer manpower, time, and attention to it would be in the 6 figures just to get it in an administrative standpoint. Then we'd have to get the homeowners to sign on to it. And if one homeowner says no, even out of those 4, where do we stand now? We're back to square one, and we don't have a project because one person is holding out.
So Dan, from what I'm hearing is, it's not a matter of negotiating how we can make this property protection work. It's gonna either be all or nothing.
No, I actually said previously, the mechanism you're using for property protection is not viable in New York State. There's no precedent or anyone who's actually shown a way in which to do
Whether there's
it.
precedent or not, there is precedent outside New York State, and some municipality has to be that person to set the precedents.
And that may be the case in other states. What I will tell you is if a lawsuit is filed, it's based on, can the town prove that solar in itself is such a detriment to the surrounding properties that it requires this type of protection? And what I can tell you for 100% fact is that no other industry in your town requires this type of protection. So therefore, it is by nature arbitrary and capricious, and will get thrown out, and they will tell you that that portion of your law is not viable because no other industry is required to follow those standards. I'm sure everyone here is familiar with the Hanson gravel pit. They are not required to follow the same setback and standards that a solar project that has a 40-year contract, and at the end of 40 years, the landowners have the right to tell us to take it away and renew the land back to its original state with a decommissioning plan. Hanson gravel doesn't have that. They have a giant hole in the ground. So there's one industry right there. I'm sure we can find a handful of others that may have additional environmental issues that are similar to ours that don't have those same restrictions. So on its face, that is the pure simple fact that it is just not proven that solar would need that kind of protection for the surrounding properties. The town board may feel that that is the case, but the law says that it doesn't apply because it's over in excess of what is actually needed.
That's a wonderful explanation from your point of view. Now, when you drive by Hanson, you see a driveway.
You actually see a pretty large berm, a lot of trees, like a screening, similar to what we're proposing.
All right. When you go to where your industry has been, we see, like, Five Corners is basically a disaster.
But we've already talked about Five Corners, and you've said it multiple times. We've already put things in place. 200-foot buffers at a minimum from any residential property. So we already covered that. And it's a different company. So I understand one company may have made some issues in another town, and we addressed that with the zoning.
But
And we're willing to do as much as we can to
But
to
here's
beat
the
that.
problem, is that you're arguing on the uniqueness of your project, of where it's situated, and what, you know, where it is within the town. But this law is for the whole town. So we could have a solar project in a much different position that our law would be,
So that's
that's why we don't want to
So that's actually not true, because your zoning law is the precedent, and we've
Yes.
gone over this many times. Your zoning law is the first barrier for where solar can be allowed. If you do not change the zone of a specific parcel, which is also illegal in New York State, you can't do spot zoning, so you'd have to change the regulations for an entire zone to allow it, or do a solar overlay. That is the only way that a project would be allowed outside of the light purple and the dark purple. So to say that another project could pop up somewhere else and this law is needed to protect that, that's factually not true, because the zoning law is the first barrier that stops that from happening. And this 2,500 piece would not even become a factor unless you as the board voted to change the zoning. So I get the intent of the law. You're trying to protect homes from Five Corners and being inundated with solar. But as we've said before, your zoning laws do not allow solar outside of the light purple and the dark purple. Those are the only two areas. So unless you change your comprehensive plan and your zoning, they will never be outside of those areas unless you choose to allow it. So the solar law will never actually come into play unless you change your zoning. So in essence, the solar law is only affecting anything in the light purple or the dark purple. Dark purple is owned by Hanson. They have just about all of that property. So the only place solar can go in your town is that light purple. And there's only 3 parcels in there that are large enough to host solar, and we're doing it on 2. The landowners are farming the 3rd.
So in order to make this work, we would have to change the 2,500, maybe say to 500?
He's asking to change it to 0.
You would have to remove that portion of the law because it's legally not enforceable.
Okay, at 2,500 feet, I understand, but what if we reduced it?
It's not enforceable to have a home protection plan in the nature that you guys currently have, where a homeowner can enact it within 10 years. They're not required to sign it, so they could say no. Even if there's one house and there's a solar project there and they say, no, I don't want it, solar project's dead. Even if they say yes, and we put a cap on how much they could claim, say it's $10,000 for round numbers, and they can exercise that right within 10 years. As Mr. Panic has said, they have to prove that that happened. The first thing anyone is going to do, any insurance company is going to look and say, well, can you legally prove that this solar project is the cause for what you're saying? And the answer is going to be no. It's simply going to be no. There is no definitive way to prove that someone's home price went down or up because of solar. There's so many other factors that you could factor into it. Insurance company's gonna say no. So at the end of the day, the project could get stopped for something that's never going to actually legally be binding or enforceable. And it's a contract that would have so many addendums to it just to make it viable, that we're talking about $100,000 in legal fees just to get a contract together before even presenting it to them. There are no solar projects that I have worked on in the last 4 years that has ever provided any type of payment to an individual resident for protection of home value. That's what
That doesn't mean it
setbacks.
shouldn't exist.
I'm not saying that it shouldn't be implemented or that it's not in theory a good idea, because I understand. Not every town I go to, I like solar, I don't want it in my backyard. Every time, I get that. That is not lost on me. So what are the mechanisms that we actually can do that are workable, that are enforceable? Increased buffers, we have 200-foot buffers. Increased screening mechanisms. Let's offer the neighbors an opportunity to review the screening plan, and in year 1, 4, and 6, if they feel that it's not growing in adequately, we allocate a certain amount of money to increase that screening plan in their specific area, on top of already doubling it. Tying the decommissioning bond to the operation and maintenance, which normally doesn't happen. Normally that's tied to, are you producing energy? If not, tear it down. If we're not maintaining the property, if we're not responsive, set up a hotline, set up an email address dedicated to it. If we don't answer within a certain time period, you put us on notice. If we don't do something in 30 days, you are legally allowed to force us to tear it down.
That's the one that you mentioned in the last meeting, and that one I find intriguing. Now, as far as, there was something it may not be a precedent in solar, but it was in wind. If you recall, they were doing agreements with people within so many, yeah, all that, you know. So it's not, to me, it's not, perhaps it's unprecedented, and I haven't looked at it, because what I recall is what the wind companies were proposing. But that proposal is intriguing. That's different. It's that's why I'm hitting at it. Now, my personal view, I don't like her a lot. Gee, I wonder why.
Because we worked hard on it. Because we all worked hard on it.
Yes.
And there's pieces of your law that exceed other laws, like reporting on any birds that may die in the vicinity. Maintaining certain elements of the project and reporting and having financial records being available. There are elements of your law that we agree with, that's what the town wants to do. But I've said from the very beginning, there were only 3 pieces of the law that I was concerned with. 2,500 foot, the 1,000 foot from residential, which has already been addressed, and the $150,000 per site, which we're trying to figure out ways for that one. There's only one piece. All of the work you did is still being captured. We are still following your guidance on that, except for the one piece. And we're happy to look at other ways to achieve that without a legal contract with all these other neighboring properties that aren't even adjoining it. One thing I will mention, your attorney did when we submitted the application back on November 1st, about 9 months ago, submitted a letter back to us saying that the town would be looking for a host community agreement on top of the pilot. That would be additional money that we could allocate towards the town. This is not split with the county or the school district. That would be on a per megawatt basis. So right now the county is doing 6,000 per megawatt for our 10 megawatts. And we could allocate that host community agreement to the town, 100%, for the same life of the project.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but when you start talking about pilots and host community agreements, I get the feeling that I'm not gonna sell my town out. I will not sell my town out for $20,000, $30,000 a year.
I'm not sure how you're selling your town out.
You're throwing money at us.
It's taxes. Any business that comes to this
Yeah.
town has to pay taxes, that's
They
tax
do.
revenue.
Then pay taxes for
There-
the value of the project.
There is a mechanism that New York State has for it, but there's also a legal mechanism through the county to do a pilot.
Which we have no control over.
But that's the same across all of New York State. So I'm not giving you a bag of cash and saying, hey, look the other way.
See, part of the problem is they are an industry that has found favor at the state level.
Yes, they have.
If you look at it, we have our choice of pilot or our choice of basically a percentage of the discounted cash flow from, am I right?
Yeah.
From the output of the unit. They all come down to where it ain't much. It comes
So
down
how
to-
many year
it
guarantee,
ain't much.
how many year guarantee are you gonna say your company's staying here in this town?
The pilot would be for 30 to 40 years, which is
Your
this.
company, you're establishing this windmill system, this whole solar system. How many year contract is your company, your LLC, writing in stone that you're gonna stay here in this town as a company?
For the life of the lease and the pilot, 30 to 40 years.
Your company.
So you won't sell.
You guys ain't selling out.
We could sell them as a group.
That's the point.
Well,
You're
so
selling out.
let's slow down for a second here, because first off, this is not a project that's going to make the town rich. That's not what this is. It's a small project. It's just like building a small strip mall for people to rent space in, right? So I could come in here as a building developer, build it. 5 years from now, I may own 3 or 4 others. Someone could come in and offer to buy it. I'm not saying that's what we're doing, but it could happen, right? Just like someone could come in and buy 40 acres of your land over here, and you buy 40 acres over there. If anything like that happens, the rules and regulations which are stipulated here are legally binding for anyone who owns the property. Whether it's us, we could own it for 30 years, and the last 10, we sell it, we could own it for the full 40.
But once it transfers ownership from an LLC, it means nothing.
That's not true at all.
I want that in writing.
So companies buy I don't understand how this is any different than any other business. We're developing a product, our goal is to long-term own it, because you get your revenue from the production of energy. So we need that energy to recoup our investment in building it. Just like if you built a brick and mortar facility, you're hoping that someone rents space from you. Now in this economy and in this time with COVID, no one's renting brick and mortar, so you'd kind of be crazy to build that. If you did build it in 2020 and no one rented it, you may be looking to sell it. That doesn't mean that whatever agreement and taxes were signed with the town are all of a sudden null and void for the next owner. They follow the same exact rules and regulations that that individual set in place. It's the same thing if a gas station changes from Sunoco to Shell to whatever. They still have to follow the rules and regulations in the permit that was issued to them. It's no different.
Just going back to what our logic was when we got into this, 2-3 years ago, when we first started down this road. 2 concerns. Number one, we didn't want to see our farmland disappear. That's why we went with industrial property, and it made sense in that since none of these developers string any infrastructure, so it's going to be where the infrastructure is, where the power lines are either headed to or in industrial zones. So I think we would have a very easy time defending that portion of our law. The second thing that we started to see develop And some of the proposals from Byron, there was some proposals, I think it was pretty close to us up here in the northeast part of town, where people would be boxed in. And we don't want to have that. So we wanted to put into law something strong enough that says you're going to recognize those neighbors. Now, if they can't see it because of the railroad bed, that is unique to that project. And maybe that's something that there's a variance on. If they can do it where those other neighbors that are in line of sight of it, I mean, because it's not like a windmill with the whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. I mean, maybe these things hum, I don't know. But that our primary concern is, again, we didn't want to bury our farmland, and we don't want to have residents, I mean, we have one resident that'll gain from this development. We want to make sure those residents around them will not be disadvantaged. But, does everybody agree that that's what we walked in there with?
Yeah.
And then part of it, and part of the reason why we set a high dollar amount on funding that has to be maintained is that when it comes to doing the seeker, we wanted to make sure we do a deep dive into what can be the impact of these units on the farmland.
And we haven't done that yet.
Well, we have done it to a degree with our study committee, but that was, it's not the case where you go in and you see, all right, can anything leach off of these? Well, then what's our baseline on the property now? You know, there's questions that have to be answered. This is new. And that's why we set it where we set it. Our study group simply gave us, be careful.
Well, you got 2 volumes of.
I'll be careful. Yeah, all the various examples around the country, and they looked into, and what are the things we should be careful of, and those are the things we should include in the seeker.
I mean, you get all positive from the state, and this is all good, but then that is a difference of opinion. Our study shows another, and we're not even touching on 1% of what's in those 2 volumes. Where are we here? We're going on and we don't seem to be getting anywhere.
We're kind of arguing back and forth. Now, Don, you how the heck did we ever get in that meeting anyways? I know I got a phone call. I was planting trees. I didn't even want to be there.
Well,
but you did get a hold of me, so.
That was my mistake.
So, I received an email saying that wanted to set up this meeting. I immediately called Bob and I said, hey Bob, look, I don't think it's a good idea for any one of us to meet individually. I think we should all meet at a town board meeting with our attorney and with BW Solar. Bob was concerned that our attorney couldn't make it that night. So I said, that's fine. Schedule a special town board meeting when our attorney can be there. And Bob thought that was a good idea. 2 weeks later, I get an email at 10:30 in the morning saying there's a 1:30 meeting that afternoon and I work.
Same one I got.
How's this happen?
Well, I'll plead guilty to that.
But all through the meeting, we kept saying, that's fine, but we can't speak for the board.
That's right. No decision was made.
If I could just say something, I have been advocating that you have your attorney, your code officer, and whatever third-party engineering firm you want to hire that we will pay for at every meeting since November. I frankly am confused with all these questions swirling around about what environmental studies are going to take place, whether your law is even constitutional or not. if the board is acting in its actual duty, which I would, not to be super critical, but it's been 9 months since the application has been here, and in theory, there is grounds for an Article 78 challenge. So my question to the board is, why are we not bringing in the attorney, bringing in the engineer, and addressing the questions that we keep talking about in all these meetings? And we will pay for it, we will set up the escrow account. If you can tell us the application is missing X, Y, and Z, we need more information on these 3 things. It's not complete, give us a formal response there. And then if you wanna schedule a special meeting with the attorney and with an engineering firm of record that you hire, third party, to review it all, I 100% support that. And I will be at every single one of those meetings and will answer questions, just like we did in public hearings. And you could propose those questions to the engineers, to the lawyers. I will bring our lawyers, I'll bring Labella, our engineers as well, and literally put it all out on the table so that we're not going through a circular conversation over and over again. And if there's ways to hash it out without getting lawyers involved, I'm all for it. If there's things you guys wanna see, I'm open ears.
Let's schedule that special meeting.
Well, no, first, we haven't even contacted our side of the engineering side of this.
No, but I mean, we could have our engineer come in and, like you say, we can hash it out. We're getting nowhere here tonight, we could be here
No,
at midnight.
we could be,
still talking about
no. We all made promises and I don't see a one of them fulfilled. We promised to contact our engineering people, we did. I recall you guys were gonna give us some proposals, just like the one you listed tonight, but now we're back to the, your law stinks, make it disappear. Well, propose something to us. Propose something that protects a group, protects the neighbors to that unit.
I will, for the next meeting, which I believe is what, June or July 15th, I will have a comprehensive plan as to what we can add to what we currently have right now in place of the 2,500 foot real protection, or real property protection plan. I can put together a full comprehensive plan, have our engineers here. I will make sure our attorney is here to explain why the 2,500 foot piece is not viable for us. And I will beef up our site plan in as many ways as I can to augment that 2,500 foot piece. And on top of that, I'm happy to hear suggestions as to what we could fit in between those houses and try to make it work. I'm all ears and would be happy to.
Do we want to do this at our July meeting, or do we want to have a special meeting? We're having a problem with our attorney being.
Can we hold off on
this
that meeting?
Because he's committed to the town of Alabama.
Can I make one suggestion? So before scheduling that meeting, if I bring that proposal to the July meeting and you guys look at getting quotes for engineers, getting the quotes for the engineers, and I just blanked on what the other, looking at the application and letting us know officially what you feel is missing in the application. We address those 2 things at the July meeting, and then we talk about if there is, a plan moving forward. If you find an engineering firm that you're comfortable with, moving forward then with scheduling the meeting, so that we still have, 2 months to address all of this. I don't feel like it has to be rushed.
We need to have a meeting with Steve to know, number one, if he's even available to do this for us. Number 2, what amount of time he can put into it, and go from there. So we need a special meeting. We don't need an army of people in here. We need us guys sitting with who's going to be advising us and going over, are they available, and what's their charge?
We can't do that. It's a town board meeting. It's a town board meeting, and everybody in this room can be there.
All right, that's fine. Can we get before we have a circus, can we get a special town board meeting that has our support people at to discuss it?
All right, as you suggested, that meeting might follow the July meeting.
right?
Yeah, if you wanna get quotes first, and, you know, you could say, hey, we got one place that said it was, 25,000, we got another person that said it was gonna be 50, and you've collected that information, great. If you can look at our application and let us know preliminarily if there's things you feel that things missing. In all honesty, with the project in Pavilion, with the project in Alba, they had their third-party engineering firm, MRB, already established on retainer. And that's what MRB did, was they took our application and they said, we think they need to beef this up, we think they need to clarify that they're following these standards, and every month, we would address their concerns, bullet by bullet, in the meeting. We'd put it up on a projector and we would talk through what they asked and said was what they felt was wrong with the application, how we were correcting it, and we read those out every single meeting. And that's how the third-party engineering firm edited and reviewed our application in front of the whole board, and we responded to those every single month. And the attorney was there to say if something was edited, the attorney would give guidance as to whether or not he felt that was legal, and then he would write up resolutions, and every month we had action items getting closer to a full and complete application that the board felt comfortable with. And that's what we did in both towns. And we pay for the engineers and the attorneys to be there on your behalf.
We have a motion on the floor, don't we?
No.
Do we ever vote on, I still think we should do it.
The motion is to authorize Bob, if need be, if it's needed, required to enter into an agreement not to exceed $9,500 with Eric, the law firm from Boston. Or Boston, excuse me.
Yeah.
Boston. You have a motion and a second, you've not voted on it.
Because we really don't spend a dime on it, but we lock down Don's research.
At the end of the day, that's all you're doing.
Yeah, that's all we're doing.
If we don't use them, we're not spending money.
Roll call vote.
Okay, roll call. Councilman Mullen,
Yes.
Councilman Panic,
Yes.
Councilman Deason,
Yes.
Councilman Pacer,
Yes.
Supervisor Clement.
Yes. Voila.
You get right down to it. Mark just isn't available when we need him. If he's going to be at Alabama first, it seems to be constant. It's quite disappointing.
Many times, I'm not gonna ask him again, but, it's still gonna be negative.
So I think we're all set there. I think we need a special board meeting. I think we need to get the letters out to the people that advise us from the engineering end, starting with Steve, because he's been our, since we're not big enough for an engineering department. We're not even big enough for an engineering closet. Let's get the letter off to him, see if he's available, and then let's start the process of ramping up our side of this.
Okay.
But, all right, a couple of things that have been left open-ended. You recall you found a whole litany of errors in the actual application that we got.
Correct.
All right, has that been corrected?
We've never received a formal indication, review of our application from the town. He simply said that there were some typos, which were in the decommissioning plan, which is the same decommissioning plan we use across New York State, and we accidentally used another town's name in our decommissioning plan.
I think there was more than that.
I could go back through it. I could go back through it. I'm not gonna say I was under the assumption, but
I was under the assumption they were gonna redo it
I did
and
too.
resubmit it.
So what we're not gonna do is resubmit 10 copies of a 500-page document, which would cost roughly $7,000 or $8,000 on the current status of things, because we haven't hammered out the $150,000 piece, and we haven't hammered out the $2,500. So there's elements of it still outstanding. And there are pieces of it that at the time we didn't have
Still there?
the zoning variances finalized. We have those now. But there's still some pieces to it. In terms of content, it's all the same. If we're looking at some typos, we will go over it with a fine tooth comb. I know we already have, but submitting $6,000 to $8,000 worth of documents all over again because of a town name change, I think at this point is a little bit excessive.
I don't believe it's excessive. To me, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna say this, to me, it shows your unprofessionalism right from the start, that you can't get that document right in an application, and you're not willing to fix it and get it back to us. To me, that's unprofessional, I'm sorry.
And I do apologize if you feel that way. You know, I would say that is maybe a sentiment that's shared on both sides right now.
It's a big rip on me.
We're 9 months into the review of a project and we don't even have an actual confirmed, response that it's been received and it's been reviewed. The only comment I've received is verbally from you saying there's typos in there. That's the only thing that's ever happened. So at this point, we will address the typos. If it's gonna cost us $8,000 to start all over again and resubmit it, I will do that and have it to you for the July 15th meeting.
All right.
If we can address the action items that the town board is legally responsible for, I would appreciate it if we could address those, because at this point, the people on my team are saying, let's file the motion and get the ball moving, because it's gonna take 6 months in Albany Court of Law to address the constitutionality of the law and the Article 78, which is an administrative challenge. You usually pair both of those together. It is expensive on both ends. No one wants to spend $100,000, and the winning party does not want to sue the other one for their legal fees. So I will get it to you July 15th as soon as possible and fix those elements. And hopefully that will address the concern that we are not presenting our best foot forward.
Acceptable?
If he does that, what happens if we change things? He's gotta submit again?
If we change things.
No, if he submits his application in full correctly, our engineer can then look at that application and see if there's anything else that's needed. Is that correct?
What I was hoping would happen is you would hire the engineering firm, they would send us that initial review of what needs to be changed, and we submit that revision with all of their comments, because to his point, the engineering firm is going to pick through it with a fine-tooth comb and say, change this, change that, change this. We won't resubmit the entire application, we'll resubmit the portion that they requested to be edited on a page-by-page basis. So if it's a certain portion of the decommissioning plan, we would resubmit that. If there are typos throughout the whole thing, which I know for a fact they're not, there's in very specific sections, we can resubmit that. If you want us to do the full application to have a base and start from there, I don't want you feeling like we are half-assing this. I definitely don't. And I don't think I have. I've been here every month, answered a lot of questions, been very diligent in following up, and trying to get the board involved. So, you know, that I take that on the chin a little bit, and I'll do what I can to fix it. But to that point, what I would really like to see is a third-party engineering firm look at our application right now with the variances that we have, do a deep dive, come back to us with all their comments. A month later, we're responsible for delivering and addressing every single bullet that they put out, and we do it in a public forum, and we go right down the line with everything they had, and we show you how we changed it, and make sure that's submitted and updated in the application.
So, I need some education here, a little clarity. You submitted your application and we received that application. The next step was go to the zoning board. That left us out of it until they did their work. But yet you say that we've been dragging our feet for 9 months.
Correct.
I don't understand. I'm sorry, maybe I'm stupid, maybe I'm dumb, I don't get it. I work on common sense, and this, common sense wise, that statement doesn't make sense to me.
So what would typically happen is the board receives the application, we pay our application fee, which we did, we received a receipt, we got a letter from the attorney stating that our application was received, and he's aware that we are looking for a pilot from the county, and that the town would be looking to receive a host community benefit. Acknowledgement of receipt. Typically what happens is, even though we're going to the zoning board first, most boards issue a formal acceptance and say, these are the elements we feel you are missing. One of them are your application and your site footprint currently don't fit the zoning. You need area variances. Come back to us when you have those area variances. You have typos in your decommissioning plan. We need these addressed and fixed. You're missing a view shed analysis as part of our law. We need to have that before it's considered complete. And then anything else that, usually there's one or two things. And then as we are working to get those documents either from the zoning board or part of the seeker process or at the planning board level, I know in this town typically you refer projects to the planning board and they give you a guidance as to what they think you should do, and you have the right to choose one way or the other. While all that's happening, usually we have a review from the town board saying that either your application is deemed complete, but because of zoning it's not, and we need these 3 items from you for it to be complete once you come back from the zoning.
Okay, so that being said, we need to get our engineer on board. Okay, understood.
That would be my request.
Yep. Okay. You don't have body armor and AR-15, do you? Good.
I have a hunting rifle, that's it. And I'm not even that good with that. I didn't get a deer last year, unfortunately.
This town has elected me as a councilman to be diligent and critical, and it's what I'm being.
If you read the email I sent Barb and Supervisor Clement after the meeting where you put in your 3 months notice, I applauded your work. I said, I hope you don't resign. And if you could share that email with him, I don't have your email.
I have it, yeah.
I would, that's good for the town. There's nothing wrong with what it is you're doing. I applaud you for sticking to your guns and putting me to task. That is what typically happens. I don't hold any animosity to you for it.
Or me to you.
You're doing a great job, and if you can, beat me up and make the project better for the community, albeit, good for you. I hope that, you, at the end of it, you feel like, you took me to task, and what happens in most towns. So I'm here to answer questions and try and get a project that you guys feel is good enough to be in Stafford.
Can we move forward?
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
I do have a question if I may ask. May I ask?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to ask you, Dan, we heard Eric talking about the inflation and how it has gone up like 3 times.
Yes.
So my little note down here to myself said, can this solar project be doable with this inflation? And back when you applied in November, although I thought it was April, but you must have figured out how much it would cost, and now with inflation that's gone out of sight and diesel prices and everything that I don't even know how much, is this still a doable project?
Yes, so that's a great question. What we typically do and what we're doing for this project as well, when we have enough projects, so we have a scale of economy, most companies do not build a 5 or 10 megawatt project on their own. To your point, it's too expensive construction-wise to just build those 2 little projects. So what we're trying to do is we have the Alba project, we have these 2, we have the one down in Pavilion, and we have a handful of others here in Western New York. Once we have all of those permitted, we would try to build 6, 7, 8 of them in close proximity all at the same time. So we'd be able to buy panels, like you're shopping at BJ's rather than a smaller box store. You can buy panels in bulk quantity. You can buy the racking system in bulk quantity. You can hire the construction companies to go from one to the next to the next. And by doing multiple projects at once, you reduce the unit price of each one and make it more viable.
Well, it sounds good, but here we are doing District 12, and we can't hardly manage it because it's tripled. I think you are a terrific salesman. I object if you get your time in every single month, and we don't. But you answered it well, I guess, but I just can't see how with inflation, it's still a viable project.
Well, so it's privately funded, so no tax dollars from the community is going towards us building it. Well, I take that back. There are NYSERDA New York Sun grants that have just come out in June. And if this project gets approved, we would apply for those grants, and that goes to construction.
But I don't talk about private funds or anything, I mean, or public funds rather. Just the idea that inflation is hitting everywhere, and I would think it would hit your company just as hard as it's hitting.
Oh, it does. It does. Normally, some other companies 5, 10 years ago could build a 5 megawatt standalone project. Today, it's very cost prohibitive to build just one of those little projects. That's why you're seeing these massive 500 megawatt, 100 megawatt projects, because they're trying to reduce the cost of construction by putting this massive thing in one area. I personally don't think 100 megawatt projects are the right way to go. I think it's too big. I think it eats up a community. I think the 5 to 20 megawatt range is more palatable. But again, different companies do different things.
You hit on a point. I think once Byron, Elba, and Alabama are built out, where you have, it's over 10,000 acres of solar panels, all running along those lines, I think you'll find people's tolerance will not get better, but get worse.
I agree.
For seeing this. So,
I don't want to be trying to permit a project anywhere near those large Article 10s, because I agree with your sentiment. Enough's enough. I don't blame you there.
All right. We gotta get a hold of our.
All right.
No, that's my fault.
So now, again, you're gonna come back with what some of your what your proposals are for protecting
In place
those
of the
people that are in
2,500.
line of sight.
Yes. In place of the 2,500, we will put together as robust of a plan as possible to serve the same purpose that 2,500 real property we feel would.
Alright.
Now, when I
Answer my
contact
questions.
an attorney, you want me to use our attorney or this attorney?
I would say ours for now.
Okay. I mean, you went to the trouble to do this, I want to make.
No,
But that's once you get down the road with that, you're in. I think you're in for the ride.
I just really think that attorney's gonna be needed.
Yeah.
Just a gut feeling.
I'll get a hold of our attorney,
Yeah.
you know, come on. For one meeting, can you come and
Yeah.
be here? All right. Okay. So, is there anything more to be discussed on solar? If not, that's the end of the agenda. Go around the table, Steve, you got it?
Yeah, that
I
auction.
encourage you to go take a ride on the Twin Road, that's a nice
Oh,
drive.
No, that is.
It turned out nice. Nice road. Except at the end. That's a
Oh,
heck of a bump.
wow. We're either gonna fix that, or Leroy's gonna do their end.
Okay.
Or,
No one hold
Wow, yeah.
the same people that plow half of it during the winter. I don't even know how they do it. Cause you gotta turn the truck around, you plow the other half. Cause that was my route to the thruway.
yeah, there's a little, well, when you go from good to,
Yeah, that's not so good.
but anyways, we had the truck
closing the auction tonight, 52,100 we got out of that 07 truck. Sander was 4650, and the other 05 was 430, so 57,180. So
Good job.
the other truck is in Watertown, so hopefully in a month we're gonna see that one. And then the second truck, he's telling me October, November.
Who is, now that Boyles is gone, long gone.
Regional.
Alright.
They have like 9 dealers. Rumor is they're gonna get bought out by somebody else.
Southern Tier buy it, or,
No, somebody out of the northeast. Some big guy up. That's the rumor.
you always do well.
Yeah, the trucks, yeah, that was amazingly well, so.
Yeah.
I was guessing 30, so,
That's about 30 for a long time.
yeah, then it jumped. Then on a side note, talked to Alan Barnard from Jim Barnard. He does all the government pickups now, trucks. And he's talking somewhere between 48 to 55 on another pickup truck replacement. I was hoping to take this money maybe and try to see what we can even come up with for a truck. We don't even know if, he don't even know if he can get some. He says GM only offers a few pickups and it's not what you want. This is what we have. Do you want it, yes or no? The whole game has changed. It's just horrible. He said when they placed orders there in the spring, he had over 600 orders. GM allowed them 200. So, I mean, if it's all right with you guys, I'll research and see what we can. I mean, we're getting a replacement schedule, just getting,
Yeah.
the last 3 years has just been,
It's been condensed into 1 year.
right, everything's just getting out of whack. It's sickening. But, so, that's it. So, I told the guys we're gonna take it, so let it all go. So,
Alright, one of the things that I think we've all received multiple complaints about is our assessor taking the position that, well, if you want me to look at your assessment, you have to let me in your home. Well, I've never let them in her home. I won't even answer her questionnaire. So I went about researching on, all right, what are the rules? Well, according to New York State, they can ask, but if it's private, if it's not open to the public, you do not have to comply. Now, I'm also understanding that we have inconsistent application if, in lieu of going into your home, and don't forget the often unquoted Third Amendment. Isn't it the third? Not having troops in your home. Which one is that?
I think it's the Fourth Amendment.
No, fourth is something different. Anyways,
14.
there's just something creepy about her insisting that the only way to move forward is to see it in person. And some people are just strictly against it. So now, since New York State, they make it clear to a degree, when you read the articles on the national level, states vary on the amount of power they give their assessors. Well, just let me throw it out there. I think we should pass a local law that says if somebody turns you down for, entering their home, then you work off of photographs, blueprints, whatever else is available.
Well, that's what she does.
No.
Okay.
Or people are fibbing to me when they complain. But I think we need a policy. I don't think it's anything we can put in the handbook, I think it's something that we. So now, if I write something up, do we want to spend the money to have our attorney look at it and see, is it really legal? And then go from there, so, I mean, Ann's gonna retire, so, I mean, this is no sweat off of her brow. But I don't want somebody coming in that says, oh, well, if you want me to reassess, you're gonna have to let me in your house. Does anybody else feel like I do, that this entering into your house is just creepy?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
I just say no and that's it.
Yeah, we all say no, we're on the board, we all say no, and we're subjecting our citizens
I don't
to.
fill out the questionnaire just like you.
Don't you remember the one time she asked for money to email it? I said, why? I throw it away.
She's been in my house, if anybody wants to know.
What's she looking for though? I mean, what's her?
You know, what they look for is like updates, they look for improvements. If you redid your whole kitchen, that way they can assess it for a higher price.
Well,
amount.
we thought it was from the outside and the size of your building.
Nope, it's the inside as well, when they assess a home.
What is her source and what is your source? Please.
All right, I'm just going off of what the, what New York State says about it. Does the assessor have to be let into your home? Now this is where you're gonna, the New York State Assessors Association pamphlet, Understanding Assessments and Property Taxes states, the assessor has a right to go to your front door and seek admittance. Possibly he or she will only want to inspect the exterior, but must leave the premises if asked to do so. If it is really inconvenient to allow an inspection at that time, tell your visitor that just try and make an appointment at some other time. So already they're kind of muddying the issue, and it gets right down to the law. You don't have to let them in. Their claim is that they can do a higher quality assessment by seeing how everything fits together in your home.
Your toilet's flush, you have Sherwin-Williams paint on the walls, and your curtains are from Pennies.
Yeah. See now, here's a good example. If you build after we went to local inspection, your house plans are on file here. I built prior to that, and mine are on file up in Rochester. So there's no access to that. So I would be or somebody that bought an older home that was prior to zoning.
We had a neighbor who had an L-shaped room in her house. One part was the living room, one part was the dining room, because they had a dining table. Now, is that one room or is that two rooms? There's not that partition there.
You know, to be honest.
But yeah, the thing is that that's part of the description as to how many rooms in that house. So you want to sell it, it's okay. But if she's going to assess it as more than it is, then you're not going to be happy.
Again, all I'm after is I don't think it should be a threshold to get a fair assessment that you have to let them into your house.
I believe you.
If you're willing, you know, if you want to argue it and do it with pictures and so on and so forth, or bring a sample of the wildlife that is hanging around your house, so be it. I don't think you should be disadvantaged for that. And I feel strong enough about it that I think it should be a board policy. So if I write up the policy and we pass it, and we send it to the lawyer and go from there. I'm just looking for interest. And it looks like I have interest from everybody. All right, I'll do that. It's like I said, I like him. But you're never getting invited to a party. All right, I think I covered enough.
All right,
I'm
all
all
set.
I will try to have something for next month's meeting.
I'm sorry, I was negligent last month, but I did go to conference in April. Thank you guys. I learned a lot, made some new connections with different town clerks, and I have more resources now. So, thank you.
So is, you running into any more landmines from, because you caught up all the minutes.
I caught up the minutes. The most recent landmine was that zoning change. No, we're still going through files and finding things. I had Michelle last week go down basement, and I have to apologize to the garden club because when we took stuff down cellar, not knowing, we barricaded the shelving to the garden club. So we have fixed that. You now have access to your shelving. We've moved things around and consolidated, and the vault now is more organized. All the assessment books are all together, not in scattered places. Michelle is fantastic at organization, I can't tell
Looks
you.
good.
She's just phenomenal for that. And I'm not stopping working, I'm gonna have the girls, with the extra money that you guys have afforded me, I have more time now with the girls to do more of this work.
Are you finding in our notoriously damp basement that there's any damage to the documentation going on?
There is some weathering of papers and some mold on some of it. And what I found, I think I talked to Jimmy about this, and I went down twice today. In that corner over there, underneath the front door, constant water.
Yeah.
We've had problems there right along.
Well, I make a joke of it that I go down and I have a broom. And I have my own broom. And there's two little holes, and and the water eventually seeps down, so I sweep it into that. But I also take it and I have swept it away.
Didn't we fix that corner?
You didn't apparently, because
No.
I went down.
It all happened when we put the addition on the front of the court.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened. There's water running in there, just a little trickle of it all the time. But as far as the rest of the room, we put a meaningful dehumidifier down there. And there's a line that runs into the vault. So if there's mold in there, it might have been from before.
The vault is not as bad as outside the vault, because there was a lot of paperwork outside the vault too.
Yeah.
Do we have a humidity gauge in the vault?
I have not seen it, I don't know.
I don't think so.
If we're gonna store paper, we should keep track of the humidity.
Yeah, in the vault is.
I don't know if there's a setting on the
Cheap
dehumidifier.
one, yeah.
Yeah, but there's no more room in that vault either.
No, they're about this big room.
No, I just mean for storage
Yeah,
of more
all right.
materials, what I mean. And there's a lot of material down there. But, I think the problem is the water, the standing water that I'm constantly trying
Yeah,
to.
I
But I was down there twice today, an hour and a half apart, and it looks, and I know this isn't the case, but it looks as if I put the water in and something spit it back out. It was the same amount of water. It's just like, why do I keep doing this?
You know, it runs through the holes in the concrete, it goes into the subfloor.
Right, but there's water coming in from some source.
Yeah, right.
And the concrete is not level,
Yeah.
so I find spots where it's a little deeper
Needs to
than
be
others.
cut way deeper and more holes in there.
But I think that's the main reason for the dampness and the mold is that
Well, that's
City
part
water.
of it, that's part of it.
Yeah. Comes out of the corner.
I-
Yeah, vision and
So,
over.
that's, I hope I answered it.
Sometimes we do it. Between the 6 other things.
No, I really don't have anything other than, you want some free wood, bring a chainsaw over.
There's a lot of free wood around.
No,
It doesn't seem there should be with what heating oil prices are starting to get to.
well, that tree come down in my driveway.
I think it's up over 6 now for heating oil.
I went and saw Bruce Schofield, because Linda was gonna have Hanson do banners on the poles. And Bruce is gonna get a hold of a guy about doing it. And he's gonna get back in touch with me, and we may get a whole bunch of people together and pay for it all. If Steve wants to put them up on the poles, we'll have all the hardware and
Can you work on that? Never mind, don't answer that.
Byron does it. Byron made their own brackets. And they just hang them in quick and stick a flag in.
And Pavilion does too, because I talked to Cindy too.
Jamie does it. It's kind of a, you know.
Yeah, a lot of towns are doing a lot more, pictures of the veterans up there. And now I see all the pictures of the graduates home from the.
Don't ask.
so Bruce is all excited about doing it, so he's taking them all.
Very good.
Okay, I did ask for an executive session. In the meeting.
While we pay the bills.
Yep.
All right, let's,
I may leave you guys to